Good afternoon, everyone. It is with absolute pleasure, that I introduce our guest today. I'm Timothy Summers, Executive Director of Third Horizon Initiatives at ASU's University Technology Office. Just want to say thank you to everyone for joining tonight. Have a wonderful guest, Dr. Nashlie Sephus. Dr. Nashlie is an applied science manager for Amazon's artificial intelligence group, focusing on fairness and identifying biases in AWS AI technologies. We absolutely are very much interested in that, considering how much we use AWS tech. She's formerly led the Amazon visual search team in Atlanta, which launched visual search for replacement parts on the Amazon shopping app in June 2018. Pretty interesting stuff. This technology is a result of a former startup called PartPick that Nashlie had been working on, that was acquired by Amazon. Nashlie was the chief technology officer for PartPick. And prior to working at PartPick, she received her PhD from the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology in 2014, and worked for a year with Exponent, a technology and technical consulting firm in New York City. Her core research areas were digital signal processing, machine learning, and computer engineering. She received her BS in computer engineering from Mississippi State University in 2007, and she's featured in Georgia Tech's inaugural top 40 under 40 alumni in the class of 2020. And like myself, Dr. Sephus is a native of Jackson, Mississippi, and she is a 2003 graduate of Murrah High School. And she had several internships and research experiences worldwide with companies such as IBM, Delphi, University of California, Berkeley, GE Research, GE Energy, Miller Transporters, Kwang University in Seoul, South Korea. And in 2018, Dr. Sephus became the founder and CEO of the Bean Path, a nonprofit organization based in Jackson, Mississippi, assisting individuals and startups with technical expertise and guidance. In September of 2020, she became the owner and developer of the Jackson Tech District. This is about 12 acres of mixed-use commercial real estate in downtown Jackson, Mississippi, to bring tech training and workforce economic development to the area. We've invited Nashlie to share her innovative plans with us. Nashlie, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Please tell us all about you and your Jackson Tech Hub.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure, talking with Tim and the team prior to now, and finally being able to get in front of you all today in a virtual sense. So I do have some slides prepared. I may present for about 15 minutes or so. The tech state of mind. I have actually had the opportunity to present this before to several, other organizations and entities similar to you all in partnership with ASU. So hopefully, you'll be engaged and find a little something. There'll be a little something for everyone, no matter what your background is. And so I try to make sure I engage everyone. So again, I'm Dr. Nashlie, and I wear many hats. I work at Amazon. AI, as he mentioned, I founded the Bean Path, also developing the Jackson Tech District in my hometown, Jackson, Mississippi. So we'll talk all about that and how that kind of came about. So we'll talk a little bit about what it means to create a tech ecosystem. So if I talk about building a tech state of mind, it really starts with the person, like the people. Technology, you can't let it get too far away to where you're not even thinking about, the people that are using it. And so it really should start with the person. And so what does that mean when you're building a tech state of mind? And then I guess sort of a double entendre. I'm literally building a tech hub. It's actually 14 acres now. And we're always looking to expand. So hopefully maybe we'll be expanding even more. And so I think it's important to understand what that tech ecosystem looks like, especially in places like Jackson, Mississippi, and places that aren't often thought of as a tech hub. And how do you make those things happen? I'll tell you about my whole tech journey, and we'll talk a little about AI, because where would I be if I'm an artificial intelligence tech evangelist and I didn't have a little piece of education in this talk to help expose people to it, and the fairness in AI. And then I'll just talk a little bit more about my other efforts. So this is myself and my mother. This was actually 8th grade in Jackson, and I'm holding a lot of awards because I was that type of student that I just excelled at whatever I tried. I tried to be I tried to do my best at whatever it was doing, and apparently that was the best at the time. And so, but I never really tried to be better than other people. I just wanted to do best, make my folks proud. And so I remember they told me to just stop walking off the stage, just stay at the corner of the stage because we're going to keep calling your name. This is like class day. So I won a lot of awards that day. And I like to show this picture because, I never thought that I would be here, working at Amazon, sold a company to Amazon, especially this early in my career, and having impacted several people through the nonprofit world, through the startup world, through the corporate world, and now in the real estate world. And so, you just believe in kids. You never know where they're going. Not even if they're not the star student. You want to make sure that you're instilling some sort of encouragement in kids, and young people wherever they are in their journey. So I like to show this too. This is the age of computing that I came in. Windows 3.1 before we even had years in the name of Windows, and Mavis Beacon teaches typing. I think she's still teaching today. And so this is my favorite computer. Actually had the speakers on the side, and then the age of dial-up. I had to get off the phones. My grandmother wanted to use the phone. I had to stop downloading the CD. And so this is kind of, what we thought of. And you think about this, all this was in the age of, when we had little data. We used to have the little thumb drives, and we thought, okay, 36 megabytes was a lot of data, and so, look at how far we've come, and not just the data, but how we transport that data, how fast we transport that data, and not just having servers like this, but we now have servers in the cloud, and being able to do a lot more than what we can do back then. All that has played into how we see technology today, artificial intelligence, accessibility of the technology. And it's really more easier now than ever to really become a part of this tech scene and this tech journey. So as I mentioned, that I have a very vast background, actually based in Atlanta, Georgia, where I went to Georgia Tech for grad school, went to Mississippi State for undergrad in computer engineering, PhD in electrical and computer engineering. And I've been able to touch a wide variety of companies, like I said, different areas I've lived. Big tennis fan. King Richard is out, I think in theaters, is coming out soon. The story of Serena Williams' dad, played by Will Smith. And so I'm excited about that. Also, I'm a big bargain hunter, so just tell you a little bit more about me. And I'm a big DIYer. So I'm a big Bob Vila fan. There's other people out there too, but I think he kind of started the whole DIY movement, or at least his presence, his persona did. So that's me kind of in a nutshell. So I do want to ask, how do you know you're techie? A lot of people think, oh, I'm not techie, and remember, tech starts with you. It starts with the person on the inside. It doesn't mean you know how to code. It doesn't mean you have a lot of expensive devices that you buy and you get the top phones. It really just means that, hey, do you have a willingness to learn more and to keep up with the ever-changing, tools that are out there? And it's really a matter of not just coding, like I said, not just app development, but science and STEM as a whole. If you think about it, everything from the chair that I'm sitting in to the door, it's technology. Think about the first door that ever existed. It probably was like a rock in front of a cave, right? And look how far we've come. And so I think, keep in mind that tech is very broad. There are different areas of tech. There's graphic design, user experience, or you call it UX design, where you're actually designing how the thing looks. There's the back end designer, there's the front end designer. You also have the database analyst or administrator, someone who manages like the actual data itself and keeps it, all organized and in line. And then there's the folks that don't even deal with any of the tech, coding. Those are the people who do project management or program management, and keep all the people talking to each other, and project management, keeping everybody in line, keeping the deadlines in place, avoiding and meeting the deadlines and milestones. So just want you all to know, like you can be a techie in many different areas and sense of the word. So we have this very special day coming up next week, which I'm very proud because I know how my family does it. They like to throw down. This is actually not a picture of my family's Thanksgiving. It's slightly different. Things look a little different, but nonetheless, I love Thanksgiving dinner. And it reminds me of a very good analogy that one of my mentors told me. She said, you can have it all, just not all at the same time. And so I think my whole mantra in life is I want it all. Like I want to be able to experience and benefit all of the different things that are going on. Even when I was in undergrad and in college, I studied abroad. I did the co-op where we work for a semester and then you go to school a semester. I also interned at other places. I did research, summer research. And so I just wanted to make sure that, if there's an opportunity, I want to take advantage of it. And if you look at my career, I have been able to do that, but I did not do it all at the same time. Same way with Thanksgiving dinner. I want to eat everything, yes, but I have to pace myself, right? So I'm going to start maybe around 11 o'clock and like get a little nibble of this and that. I might come back like 2 hours later and get some dessert. And then maybe later on, after watching some football, I'm going to go back and get another plate. And by that time, I would have tried everything. And so think about life and taking on this tech state of mind, similar to how you would approach eating everything at Thanksgiving. So I think also we can briefly touch on like what building a tech state of mind is kind of in the physical sense. If you think about the tech ecosystem and all the people that are involved, it really involves the startup founders. It involves the small businesses, the large corporations. It involves engagement with the community, the universities and the K through 12, the government. It involves all types of people and entities and organizations that work together to really bring what this whole thing can be. I started out in Atlanta as a chief technology officer of PartPick, which was a startup company that we ended up selling to Amazon. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But, Atlanta has really, in my opinion, it has really grown as a tech ecosystem in the Southeast, whereas it wasn't really known for that. And so I think that same thing can happen in places like, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, or New Orleans, Louisiana. And a lot of it is happening. But I think you have to think about what is at the center of that and how do you bring all those things together to build this tech state of mind. And so at that same, I know a lot of people think about artificial intelligence. You think about we call them emerging technologies. These are like the new popping buzzwords that people think, are, like just really futuristic. And so, but it's really not that difficult. It's really not that complicated. For example, what I work in, I focus on artificial intelligence, and a lot of people wonder, what is artificial intelligence? And for the trekkies out there, you're probably wondering, okay, oh, that's data, right? That's the thing that the guy that was on TV that had all the stuff in his head, and he was fake, but he was real at the same time. Or you might think about iRobot, or that weird episode of Black Mirror where the lady brought her husband back like from the dead, and he was like just like him. It was kind of weird. But yes, artificial intelligence is really not, so that's a lot that has to do with TV, but it's really just learning from previous data. So how does your phone know that you're saying, hey, Siri, or okay, Google, or Alexa? It knows that because it has trained on several people saying those very words. And now it knows when to recognize that word because you have a lot of examples. The same way that we do face recognition. When you unlock your phone, it knows what your face looks like because you've taken pictures, maybe with your glasses on, your glasses off, your PPE mask on, mask off. And it understands in different lighting conditions, maybe with makeup on, no makeup on. It's learned from all those patterns, that's previous data. That data can be in the form of images, it can be in the form of speech, it could be in the form of music. If you've ever used the Shazam app, So now we have a model that can recognize all these things and can now infer what new things are that it hasn't seen before in the future. And so that's really what artificial intelligence is, or at the core, machine learning. It's like learning from these machines and structures. And so we use this in so many different aspects and areas. And I often, joke about this was actually a parody, a Saturday Night Live parody done, I think a few years ago, several years ago now, with Alexa. When Alexa first came out, they did this parody called Alexa Silver. And so they were like talking to it. They can't remember like the name of it. They're calling it all things like Amy. So it responded to Amy, Ashley, Amelia, and all these things. And it was supposed to be Alexa for older people. And so if you think about it though, like for example, my grandmother, she has a very difficult time using Alexa. I bought her one, and for some reason it's just difficult, And so you think about, was this product really developed for this particular type of customer? And as startup founders or people who are creating technology out there, these are things you want to think about. You want to think about, how fair is your technology for the different various groups of people that are using it. And when you think about those groups, think about also the intersections of those groups and how well your products are working to be, as inclusive as possible for everything that you're doing. And so again, I want to use an example of what AI is. So I'm going to give a quick example of the difference between a cat and a dog. All right. So how do we know? We know because we can just look at it and see, right, this is a cat, this is a dog, because we know what cats and dogs look like. But what if I were a machine and I were trying to learn it? Well, I have to get very specific about what is it specifically about cats and dogs that are different. Well, we can measure things like weight and length. And so if I were to plot that, if I'm thinking like an AI or like a machine learning model, as we call it, I want to think about how are these things different in terms of weight and length. And one way to show that is by plotting it on a graph. And so let's say I want to find the first 7 or so dogs that I see walking down the street, and I'm going to plot them on this chart. And I'm going to plot them in these blue dots. So I've plotted these various dogs in terms of their length and weight. And let's say I want to do the same thing for cats. And so I'm going to do that in green dots. And so I do that in the green dots. So as you can see, there's actually a clear delineation based on the data we've chosen. There's a clear delineation of where the cats are and where the dogs are. This line right here, which is actually an equation, is actually a machine learning model. And so if you think about it, like, what if we see something in the future that we don't know what it is? Like, we just plot it somewhere. How do we know what it is? Well, since it's on the top of the line, we predetermined based on our previous data that anything above this line is a dog. So this is probably going to be a dog based on our model. So this is pretty simple, right? But what if we had plots that look like this? Obviously, we can't determine the difference between that with just a single line, right? And so what we do is we use a lot more lines. And as you know, the math people out there, the more lines you have, the more dimensions, the more equations. And so we write it so differently because at a certain point, you're getting more than just 4 dimensions, you're getting 5 dimensions, 100 dimensions, etc. And so you have to write it a little different. It's hard to plot just on a 3D, a 2D surface. And so we kind of write it like this. We call it the deep network because there's so many things going across, and so we have to write it a little differently. So I have an example of an AI model, machine learning model, that actually looks at skin lesions and it determines if they're cancerous or not. And so guess how many, parameters or dimensions this model actually has. So we saw one that just has weight and length, just had 2. But guess how many this has? I know I can't hear people out there, so I'm actually gonna go to the next slide. This actually has 100 million parameters. So we went from 2 weight and length to 100 million. This is a deep learning model. This is why we need computation power. This is why we need a lot more math to figure out the differences between these things, because there's so many things that could be in her place. And again, this is all based on the fact that you have a well-defined data set that is very diverse across different groups, especially in the healthcare industry. We've seen this with the COVID vaccination. The booster shots are now happening. It makes you wonder, was this tested on a variety of backgrounds, especially different intersections? So for example, Hispanic males above the age of 65. Can we run our model and check it for accuracy? And do we see error rates that pop up in certain groups? And these are the things that we need to pay attention to. So kind of jumping back, so my background, I actually was a chief technology officer before at Amazon, which is where I am now. I was a chief technology officer for PartPick. And what this was we create these algorithms that will look at images. We create these machine learning models that will look at parts and images and recognize what those parts were. And so we were actually made a lot of headway. We won South by Southwest Accelerator. We won a TechCrunch Disrupt competition. We're featured at the White House Demo Day when President Obama was in office. And also Rise of the Rest pitch competition with AOL co-founder Steve Case. He featured us in his book called The Third Wave. So we had a lot of traction. And because of that, Amazon actually took notice. This is actually me presenting in a conference in Boston in May of 2016. And then after I came down those steps, the guy from Amazon approached me and he said, "Hey, we're really interested in what you were just presenting up there. Can we talk some more?" And before we know it, we sold the company. And that's exactly how it happened. Once we got to Amazon, we redid the app. And if you ever use the Amazon shopping app, there's a camera button. If you open the Amazon shopping app, there's a camera button. You can point it to anything. So like your shoes, your watch, your computer, water bottle, for example, and it's gonna at least try to recognize it. If it doesn't recognize it, then just forget what I said. But hopefully it will recognize it as something similar. That's how another application of machine learning models. This is actually what our app, when we launched it, it actually recognized parts. They actually took this feature out, so it does everything now. But this was when we first launched it, it did parts. So we use the penny as a size reference, and we allowed you to take the picture. We recognize, oh, this is a self-drilling screw. And then we let you select the head style and the drive type. And then once we do that, we collect the measurements from the penny, convert them from pixels to real world measurements. And then that first screw in the list is actually the screw that you see in the picture. And so that was the problem that we were solving with machine learning. And we call this area computer vision in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this was something that kind of carried me on into my current role, where you think about, okay, we're talking about parts, right? So there can be several parts like screws, nuts, bolts, washers. We actually recognize hundreds of them. But now moving into an area where over the past few years, where we're working with machine learning and AI models, I'm switching roles to where I'm working more with human data. And this is something that is very different, especially in the political world. And anytime you're dealing with human data or personal identified data, you want to make sure that your models are extremely fair and they're extremely, that you're checking for biases, et cetera, because there's a lot of concerns. People have even have privacy concerns about seeing their pictures in these face data sets all around. There's actually a New York Times article that says over 50% of people that live in the United States, your face has already been captured and it's in some facial data set somewhere, whether you agree to it or not. And so there's a lot of concerns about that, even especially in terms of law enforcement using the technology. And so I think, these are definitely things to keep in mind and understand how does face data sets break down, and understanding that nowadays we're actually into this world of generative AI, which we call, you might have heard of deep fakes, which, by the way, all these pictures of faces are fake. faces. So there's an algorithm, they call it generative adversarial networks, or GANs, that we use to learn from previous, again, machine learning from previous data, learning how faces look and creating new faces based on that. Now, one, you may say, oh, this is extremely creepy. I don't want any parts in this. It's okay. Well, I won't tell you it's okay, because you have every right to be concerned. But let me just help you. The good intentions, because every tool, technology is a tool. Every tool, you have good uses and you have not so good uses. What we want to focus on the good uses and the good intentions, which in this case, creating more data so that we can learn from models, and understand where we've fallen short. Because a lot of people think it's a lot easier to create fake data than it is to go out and get real data, which it probably is easier. But you have to think, is it effective? And so it's a line you have to draw there. But just want to educate you that this is something that is going on, and it's something that is real. All right, so I just want to close out a little bit by talking about some of my work that I do in the community, that we were talking about earlier. So I started the nonprofit, The Bean Path, in 2018. After we sold the company to Amazon. I've been at Amazon for a while, for a year or so, 2 years. And I wanted to go back to the community that I grew up in and provide some sort of impact in terms of technology, because I've been successful in the technology world. And I wanted to see what I could do. So we said, hey, let's get some volunteers, some tech experts. Let's set up shop in the local libraries, and people can come and ask us, questions about, hey, I need to fix my computer. Hey, my devices are messing up on me. I need to know how to fix them. Or I'm a small business and I need help with a technical roadmap. Or where do I find a CTO? And so we become that tech expert for people in the community. And we've impacted over 1,000 people in the last 3 years, and we're definitely growing from there. So once we were working at the libraries so much, this is right before the pandemic, we actually had lines of people. And so I said, wow, we really need to find out, how can we get some space? So there is definitely a need for this in the community. How can we provide more of meet the need of the people in this community? So I said, well, let me search for some places to find something. I need a building to purchase. That one building, which is actually, this is the old, it's an old, I guess you could call it a area that's undergoing revitalization. It's been pretty much abandoned all of my life, but it's in the downtown area of Jackson, Mississippi. And so I said, well, hey, I want to get this building. I found out the same guy owned like the whole 14 acres around there, 12 acres at the time. We added on 2 additional acres. And so I said, well, give it all to me. That's what I want. And so I said, well, just think about the impact we can have. We can create an entire tech district that really speaks to the community in a way that, we could never do before. And so that we now have our concept plan for revitalizing that entire area. It includes everything from event center to housing, economic development opportunities, workforce development, tech and entrepreneurship training, also tech lab spaces, and other partners and companies that are moving into these spaces to give people opportunities to work as well. So I'm very excited about that. Also, grocery store, we're addressing the food, desert, and opportunity area. And I think this is something that is going to definitely change the city. We're building over 1,100 jobs, developing over 700,000 square feet. We also have about over 450 housing units that we're adding to the city, a very much needed thing, because the local schools are pretty much all their dormitories are filled to the max every single year. People have problems finding housing in the downtown area. So I'm excited about everything we're doing. And, that's another, our first phase, we should be done by the beginning of 2023. In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have the entire project complete. It's $150 million project. So of course, not doing it all at once, but I'm excited about where it's going. So just some takeaways, start somewhere. I say, it is, it starts with you, and it goes from there, taking courses, checking out, just educating yourself online, YouTube, etc. I like to say be both creative and technical. This would not have come about if I were not both. I actually play the piano and used to play, in the band and professionally. And so I think both of the creativity and the tech, it goes hand in hand, like STEAM. Also don't pigeonhole yourself. Say you are already started out in a career. It's not too late to sprinkle a little tech on there. It goes well with anything. Keep fairness and inclusion in mind. Make sure you secure a good support system. It's very important. Things are not always going to be easy. And so, when times get hard, going to someone who has, your back is very important. Leverage your team. I learned this mistake early on the hard way. You can't do everything. Entrepreneurs out there, y'all know that. Leverage your team, delegate, learn how to delegate, especially if you're the leader, or learn your teammates and what their skills are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and or areas of opportunity, and understand, how you can better work together. Team building is a big thing. And it's kind of hard to do now since a lot of things are virtual, but you got to find a way. Give back, sow seeds. I just think it's our responsibility to, keep this cycle going. That's just what I believe. And this is for myself. Self-care is essential. So just remember that if you don't take care of you, then you can't do any of this. So it all starts with you. All right. So I guess that's it. I definitely want to say, feel free to reach out to me, follow me on social media at phenomenashly, or you can feel free to email me, Nashlie at thebeanpath.org, and follow us at the Jackson Tech District. That's our website too, or follow us at the Bean Path, and feel free to donate. We love to, we have a fundraising campaign going on our website, thebeanpath.org/donate. But yeah, I appreciate you all for listening, and hopefully, I can entertain some questions or tell you more about me.
Ashley, looks like we've got a question coming in from John. And he says, what do you think will be the shorter term applications of AI and recognition tech? Have you heard of grabandgo.com? They use visual recognition to automatically track what you've purchased in an outfitted store. What are your thoughts on
nice.
that?
Yeah, so I think the technology it's like it's finally here, right? And so when we were doing this was, oh man, I think this was 2013 when we first started this. And so a lot has come. A lot of people say, just write the ideas down. The technology is going to catch up sooner or later. You can count on it. And so, and don't be afraid to start. I think there's so many examples out there. I'm not familiar with that one in particular, but they're like Amazon has one called Style Snap. There's also I'm blanking on a few, but I know that they're everywhere. They even use this in the I think it's a realtor app where you can take a picture of the house and it'll tell you everything about the house, like the price and all that. So the technology is very extensive. I like how you think about like this technology probably started in something totally different, but it can be applied to these different things. So I just try to tell people, think about what your pain points are just in life. The part pick story, it came from Jewel Burke Solomon. She was the CEO, and she had an idea because she was, she worked at a parts company, and people kept calling and saying, "Hey, I got the wrong part. Can you give me the right part?" And she said, "Just take a picture of it." And it all came like, they say invention is the mother, necessity is the mother of invention. And so I think what we try to do is just make sure people understand that technology, what is feasible, so that you can apply these things to all the issues and the inventions that you're trying to create.
Definitely. And, Nashlie, maybe you can, this is really interesting about how Part Pick was started. Perhaps tell us a little bit about, your, the application of the tool now. It's really interesting how it's already plugged into the Amazon shopping. Is there like some thoughts on like the future of that feature or capability, or anything you can share?
Yeah, so they've actually taken it out of the app. And of course with Amazon, it's a lot of things changing every day. It seems like something's different on there. But I think there have been a lot of people to try to approach that problem. I've seen several things here and there. Not anything that's widely used though. But me personally, I think it was pretty ironic. When we were actually at the startup company, I believe we had a better product than when we were acquired by Amazon, because there's so much red tape. There's a lot of requirements you have to go through before you can enter. And then you have to emerge into this platform that, you didn't know anything about coming into it. And so your options are kind of limited. And so I often say that, we like, should we have sold? Well, no, I'm totally fine with where we are now. Because again, like actually everybody on our team that when you sell, you get a payout, you get stock that vests over time. And everybody on our team, I mean, they're doing some amazing things. Like they're able and capable now because they have capital to do so many different things. You could definitely check out Jewel Burke Solomon. She has her own VC fund called Collab Capital. She also is a head of Google for Startups, and she's been able to award a lot of funding to Black and Brown founders there, startup founders. Jason Crane, if you all have ever heard of it's called Slutty Vegan. It's like a food truck. It started out as like a food truck, but they sell these vegan burgers, and you're like, wait, this is vegan. And he is working with that company and been able to like let it scale exponentially. They have so many different locations now. He's I think COO there, and several other folks. Some of them are still at Amazon, some of them are not, but they're just all doing some amazing things. So I always say that, even though I personally want to like bring it back, like the whole Part Pick app, and do it again, which who knows, maybe one day, I will. Maybe we're not under the IP anymore. Maybe we will bring it back, but yeah, it's currently not in the state that it was when we first launched it. But I'm pretty sure that there should be somebody coming out with something similar, probably any day now.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to just see as you said, the way the sort of evolution of products over time and large companies, like an Amazon or Microsoft or so on and so forth. It's really fascinating the work that you're doing in Jackson. Being a Jackson native, it's something that I've always thought about and dreamed of. And so to see someone in Jackson getting an opportunity to do some development there, especially around tech, and love to hear your thoughts just on the impact that you're hoping to have in the community.
Yeah, so I think it's very important, the work that we're doing. My team, and I say I have a team. Just want people to know I'm not doing all this by myself. Obviously, that's not possible. I'll tell people that in a minute. But yeah, my team and I think we're trying to really hit 5 key areas in terms of impact. And so with the Jackson Tech District, one is Bridge the Tech Gap, something that the Bean Path has been an initiative of the Bean Path, and we can go much greater beyond just the Bean Path with other partners and collaborators. The second one is the economic development. Mississippi as a whole, majority of people live below the poverty line, or right at the poverty line. And so that's something that we want to show people, how do you get a better quality of life just by learning more about technology, and STEM, and how it can help you and take your business or your individual self to another level. Especially financially, and providing that financial stability or resources for you and your family. I think the third thing we're focusing on, there's, and along the lines of the economic development, Mississippi has this thing called the brain drain. People who get educated in the city, in the state, they leave the state because a lot of things, they feel like they don't have the same opportunities. They feel like they can make more money elsewhere. They feel like, there's just better inclusion and equality. And those are some things that we're trying to change. I believe that technology is like this Jackson Tech District is like, they say a rising tide lifts all ships. lifts all boats. And so it can hopefully, be that thing that bridges the gap between the different people and different backgrounds, and provide that equity and inclusion that is often missing from economic development. I think also we're touching on housing. Mentioned there's a big housing shortage in the city, especially for young adult population. Something that's affordable, not quite the lower tier housing, and not quite the extremely expensive housing, but just something right in the middle that provides decent, reasonable housing that people would enjoy to live in. Also, green space. I mentioned the food desert as well. Event space. So those are things that we're trying to achieve in terms of impact with this whole Jackson Tech project.
Looks like we've got a question from Mervin that says, I was intrigued by what you mentioned about AI tools being used to identify cancerous growths on bodies. Further, I understand the need to get as much data so that you can make better predictions, but there's certain privacy concerns that do limit the effectiveness of the tool. Do you think there needs to be more collaboration between law and tech to help strike some sort of balance?
Absolutely. One of my roles as a tech evangelist, machine learning tech evangelist at Amazon is, working with our public policy team. And oftentimes that means going to Capitol Hill in DC, or speaking to state legislators, or, different people such as law enforcement. And so it really pays to be on one page, because these are the people that are making decisions about the technology. They're enforcing laws, they're creating policies, and half the time they don't have a background in these things, so they don't understand sometimes how it works. They don't understand the limitations, and so it's extremely important to make those things, to bridge that gap as much as possible. And that's one of my jobs at Amazon as well.
So that sounds like a pretty cool job, sort of being a tech evangelist at Amazon. What's that like?
It's pretty cool. I actually I never really set out to work at Amazon. I always say that, and now I'm over 5 years there now. But I was an applied scientist for the first like 4.5 years. I switched over to machine learning tech evangelist earlier this year, because I just found myself in these spaces already. Like, I was already kind of like the person who can speak both languages. Like, I was a scientist, but I also, had communication skills that could relay this information to people who are not in the field. And I ended up being really good at it. And then my manager was like, "Hey, you should be this other job role, because this is what you're doing anyway." And so I like to attribute that to as growing up in Jackson, it's not a lot of people you can't really find a lot of tech expert access. And so oftentimes, I don't know if my family still really knows what I do. And so, it's just trying to explain, and I grew up with my mom, my grandmother, my sister. And so, I talk to my grandmother all the time, and I'm trying to, explain to her. And when I show them the app, for example, the Part app, the Amazon app, they get it. And I try to explain it in a way that they will get it. And so I think some of that skill set as well, it really helped with this role.
Absolutely, I can totally relate to that. You had no techies around me as far as I could throw, so I totally can understand that. Really wonderful. Thank you so much for the time, Dr. Nashlie. We really appreciate you sharing with us your journey, your vision, where you're headed, where you've been. It's incredibly exciting, and it seems that there's just loads more to go. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight. As you know, this is a monthly session for us, and we look forward to having all of you join us again next week for the next innov8. Dr. Nashlie will share a link for her slides, and we will try to get them out to you. Know that you guys like to reference the material from time to time, and the video will be available and out there as well. Dr. Nashlie, there's a gang of folks back in Jackson that I promised I'd send the link to, so we will definitely be sending it out. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you all so much, and I appreciate you for listening. I'm glad you found it inspirational. Definitely connect with me. Excited about what's to come. So yeah, follow us.
Sweet. Thank you again, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.